Franz Kafka earned his living as a lawyer in an insurance office, where he scraped by in an obscure and ordinary existence. Yet whenever the attorney picked up his pen, the author created a troubling universe in which absurdity was normal and reality felt like a nightmare. He became a prophetic voice of modern terror, portraying the totalitarian state, the death camps, and the inhumanity human beings inflict on one another. Kafka revealed the human price of modern society's obsession with technology, order, and efficiency. For him, writing was a desperate effort to grasp what it truly meant to be human, and the stakes were immense. He felt there was a vast world inside his mind that had to be set free, even if releasing it meant tearing himself apart, because suppressing it would be worse. He believed this was his purpose and was certain of it. After his death, his work grew tremendously influential and remains unmatched for its intensity, modern spirit, and foresight. Many readers recall first encountering his writing as strange, absurd, and almost insane, yet undeniably brilliant. Kafka managed to express a bleak, gripping, and shocking truth with a rare honesty and dark insight. In 1906, at 22, Franz Kafka graduated from Prague's Charles Ferdinand University with a doctorate in law and began searching for work. He eventually secured a position at a government agency whose schedule suited him perfectly. He started at 8 a.m. and finished by 2 p.m., leaving the rest of the day for the only activity that brought him real fulfillment: writing. The Workers' Accident Insurance Institute for the Kingdom of Bohemia in Prague was as cumbersome as its lengthy name suggested, one of 6 regional offices responsible for about 35,000 employees. Although Kafka remained there for the rest of his life, he grew to resent both the job and the bureaucratic atmosphere, which felt vast, suspicious, and devoid of soul. He sensed he was trapped beneath an impersonal system that failed to acknowledge his creative identity. Each morning he felt such deep despair that someone stronger might have ended his life without hesitation, yet instead he devoted himself to writing daily. He longed to write passionately through the night, even if it led to madness or death, because he believed he had no choice. Writing was as essential to him as air, sleep, or food. Although literature was the only source of true satisfaction in Franz Kafka's life, his father viewed it as pointless. His father, a self-made, forceful, and authoritarian businessman who owned a women's clothing shop, ruled the household strictly. As the son of a butcher, he saw life in stark, black-and-white terms and dominated the family. Kafka and his sisters both feared and admired him. A defining childhood memory occurred when Kafka was 2 or 3 years old. After asking repeatedly for water at bedtime and being ignored, his father carried him outside onto the balcony and locked the door, leaving him alone. For the highly sensitive child, this incident symbolized how absolute authority could suddenly banish and isolate him. He later admitted to fearing not people themselves but their intrusion upon his fragile nature, saying that even a close friend entering his room filled him with anxiety. Like many young men, Kafka struggled with family conflict, especially with his father, and often felt that everything, from powerful institutions to ordinary individuals, was aligned against him. It seemed as though it was Kafka versus the world, a theme reflected throughout his writing. In 1912, at 29, Kafka finally produced a short story that satisfied him, titled The Judgment, which he regarded as his breakthrough. He conceived the idea, began writing at 10 at night, and completed the entire piece by morning in a single burst of inspiration, feeling he had created something profoundly significant. In The Judgment, he examines the strained relationship between an aging father and his son George, a dynamic many interpret as mirroring Kafka's own bond with his father. As the narrative progresses, the conflict between father and son intensifies until, in the end, the father pronounces a dreadful sentence upon his child. "I sentence you now to death by drowning." At once, Georg is seized by an overpowering impulse to hurl himself into the water. He feels himself forced out of the room and bolts through the front door, racing across the roadway as if pulled toward the river. He is already gripping the railings the way a starving man clutches food. He vaults over them like the accomplished gymnast he once was in his youth, to his parents' pride. Even as his hold weakens, he continues clinging on when he notices between the bars a motorb approaching that would easily drown out the sound of his fall. In a faint voice he calls, "Dear parents, I have always loved you just the same," and then releases himself. Kafka's bleakness creates a powerful urge to turn away from it, a reaction many people experience though not everyone can endure it. In our culture, we crave resolution, a Hollywood-style conclusion, and the comfort of restored order. In Kafka's world, however, order is frequently never re-established. His work mirrored the chaos he sensed in his own life. As a German-speaking Jew raised in Czech-speaking Prague, he always felt like an outsider and grew increasingly estranged over time, continually finding evidence that he did not belong anywhere and that he could not perform the ordinary tasks others managed with ease. His watch was perpetually an hour and 20 minutes fast or slow, and his eating habits were completely unlike anyone else's. He adopted a practice known as Fletcherizing, chewing every bite at least 30 times, which would clearly test the patience of anyone dining with him. Much of his behavior isolated him from others, and afterward he would inevitably feel excluded. By contemporary standards, his mental condition might be labeled depressive and in need of therapy or medication. Yet he had read Freud and was aware that psychoanalysis was an option. Even so, he strongly believed he should not pursue it. He felt one must keep those inner demons, contain them, and learn to transform them into creative energy. Today, people recognize more openly the role such inner struggles play in art and the necessity of not erasing or smoothing them away. Writing became Kafka's form of self-treatment, and precision and conciseness defined his style. He consistently aimed to make his language as straightforward as possible. Words, in his view, involved choices as serious as life and death, leaving impressions on the mind that swiftly become the footprints of history. One should not obsess over every word. His prose resembles stripped-down modernism, reduced to fundamentals, giving it a striking formal purity that continues to endure. Shortly after turning 30, Kafka met Felice Bauer and became engaged to her. For 5 years they sustained a long-distance relationship, she in Berlin and he in Prague. He sent her what was meant to be a proposal letter, 25 pages in length, in which he meticulously outlined all the reasons she would not wish to marry someone like him, portraying himself as unsuitable for life and companionship. He had already described to her his ideal existence, living in a cellar, even a 7th cellar within other cellars, where he would spend his days writing in total isolation. In the evening, he would pass through the cellars to the outermost one, unlock the door, and find the meal Felice had prepared and left behind. She would be gone, and he would not see her, yet he would feel content imagining her presence, carrying the meal back to the deepest cellar and reflecting on her while he ate. After presenting this vision as his perfect life, he still concluded by asking her to marry him. She agreed, but he immediately urged her to reread page 7, insisting he would not bind her to her acceptance until she reviewed it again. This exchange continued throughout the summer until he eventually suffered what amounted to a nervous collapse. Within months of beginning this troubled relationship, Kafka started writing another short story. In the Metamorphosis, he depicts Gregor Samsa, a traveling salesman who lives with his parents and sisters. One morning, Gregor awakens from restless dreams to discover he has been transformed into a gigantic insect. Lying on his hard armor-plated back, he lifts his head slightly and sees his rounded brown belly divided into stiff segments, while the bed cover can scarcely remain in place and threatens to slide off. His many legs, thin in comparison to his body, flail helplessly before his eyes. The story's lasting fame stems largely from its extraordinary opening situation and the calm, detached manner in which it is narrated. There is no dramatic outcry, only a plain, factual description as though nothing unusual has occurred. By presenting the grotesque in such a restrained and realistic tone, Kafka makes the scene even more disturbing, drawing readers quietly into a surreal and unsettling world. Gregor Samsa's longing for acceptance has made the tale one of Kafka's most widely read and influential works. Many readers relate to the feeling of waking up and no longer recognizing oneself, particularly during adolescence, when physical and emotional changes can make one feel alien, awkward, or strange. This sense of identification may explain why the story resonates so strongly with young people. Although the premise is bizarre, the Metamorphosis also highlights Kafka's sharp sense of irony and humor. Gregor, now an insect and clearly distressed, still frets about missing work. The next train leaves at 7 o'clock, and to catch it he would have to rush frantically, yet his samples are unpacked and he does not feel energetic. Humor functioned for Kafka as a defense against the melancholy and pessimism that shadowed him throughout his life. It is almost as though he derived a peculiar satisfaction from intensifying his characters' misfortunes, pushing them into deeper calamity, while allowing a strange note of victory within the nightmare. Though many interpret Gregor's transformation as purely tragic, it also reveals a deeper humanity in him. In one memorable scene, his sister plays the violin, and he is so profoundly moved that he slowly emerges from his room, demonstrating how deeply he responds to music. The narrative asks, was he an animal if music could move him so much? That question captures the story's mystery and beauty, suggesting that Gregor, despite his monstrous appearance, possesses more sensitivity and emotional depth than anyone else in the household. In 1917, as the First World War continued to devastate Europe, Kafka was deeply troubled by the turmoil and suffering. He attempted to enlist but was deemed unfit for service. While his sister's husbands fought in the war, he remained at home writing, which left him feeling ashamed and lacking in masculine vigor. In the Metamorphosis, Gregor is once shown in a soldier's uniform, smiling proudly, an image representing something Kafka felt he himself could never embody. At 34, Kafka confronted his own struggle when he was diagnosed with tuberculosis. For the remaining 7 years of his life, illness dominated his existence, as he awoke each day acutely aware of his fragile condition. He endured headaches, severe insomnia, and bouts of coughing blood. Paradoxically, the diagnosis also granted him a sense of liberation. He took an extended leave from work and ended his relationship with Felice Bauer, describing the blow not as devastating but almost gentle compared to the hardships of previous years. Despite declining health, Kafka continued writing and began work on the novel The Trial. The narrative centers on Joseph K., who, like Gregor Samsa, wakes to find his life abruptly altered. An ordinary man, he discovers one morning that he has been arrested and accused of a crime he did not commit. The opening line, stating that one day Joseph K. was arrested, emphasizes passivity. Events are imposed upon him. Just as Gregor passively awakens to his transformation, Joseph K. lies in bed and learns of his arrest. In Kafka's vision, individuals do not shape the world. Rather, the world impresses itself upon them. Afterward, Joseph K. struggles to make sense of and maneuver through a baffling, labyrinthine legal system. He is informed that he must appear in court, yet he is never told the time, and upon arriving at the courthouse, he struggles to access the offices where his case is scheduled. He is never informed of the charges against him, and he spends a great deal of time trying to grasp the nature of his alleged crime, attempting to determine who is accusing him, all within a dreamlike, surreal, yet disturbingly mundane setting. Kafka drew inspiration for The Trial from his years as a lawyer for the Workers' Accident Insurance Institute, where he gained an acute understanding of how powerless individuals were under the control of the industrial machine. He also revealed how frequently injustice prevailed over justice. His protagonists are invariably trapped by a force that is incomprehensible, invisible, yet overwhelmingly powerful. By the story's end, Joseph K., like many of Kafka's characters, meets his demise. He is executed, with the reasons for his arrest never revealed and his guilt never definitively established. In the summer of 1923, 40-year-old Franz Kafka became engaged once again, this time to 19-year-old Dora Diamond. He met this young woman, who shared many of his interests, and an immediate, effortless connection formed between them. They felt entirely at ease with one another. Kafka moved in with her in Berlin, initially sharing a single room and later expanding to 2. Dora described him as generally relaxed, a natural playful companion, recounting the games they played together and his habit of reading fairy tales to her at night. However, within a year of meeting Dora and believing he had finally found genuine happiness, Kafka's tuberculosis progressed beyond treatment. For several weeks, he lay dying in a sanatorium, ultimately too weak to speak or eat. Kafka devoted his life to writing, yet at its end, he recognized that ordinary pursuits like marriage and family might have been a more practical path. Deep down, however, he knew he could not follow that course, and so he committed himself fully to writing as a quasi-religious vocation. This reflected a trend at the turn of the 20th century, the ideal of complete devotion to the literary craft, treating the writer as a priestly figure. Kafka died on June 3, 1924, with Dora by his side until the last moments. Before his death, he made a single request, that his friend Max Brod destroy all his manuscripts and unpublished works. This was a man who had spent his entire life wrestling with the question of how, when, and what to write, sacrificing almost everything for his art, and yet at the end, he asked for it all to be destroyed, a poignant acknowledgment of perceived failure and the futility of keeping a record of it. After Kafka's death, Brod disregarded this request and began publishing Kafka's writings, which gradually earned him recognition throughout Europe. English translations of roughly 70 of his stories circulated in the United States in the late 1940s. Around that time, Kafka's reputation surged, and he was seen as a prophetic figure who had anticipated the rise of Nazi Germany and sprawling bureaucracies, earning attention as a political writer in the post-war era. Over the past 3 centuries, Western society has been structured around efficiency, progress, profit, and production. Labor has been divided and mechanized, factories and assembly lines created, large cities with towering skyscrapers built, and highways constructed to connect them. While the advantages of this modern organization are widely recognized, there is a downside often overlooked. The world has become impersonal, and social life is, in many ways, dehumanizing. Kafka's work became so influential that the term Kafkaesque entered common usage. It describes situations or events marked by extraordinary, perplexing complexity and incomprehensibility, such as a Kafkaesque bureaucratic ordeal, as well as circumstances in which the ordinary is distorted into a surreal, unsettling form. An example is someone attempting to use their ATM card in Idaho with a new bank, only to be repeatedly denied access to their own money. 7 times in a week, the card failed. The bank claimed it was a protective measure because someone was trying to use the card in Idaho. The person explained that it was indeed them, on vacation, attempting to withdraw money, and that they had notified the bank in advance. The bank representative responded that nothing could be done. When asked who decides whether access is granted, they were told that a computer makes all decisions, but no one knows its location or the rules it follows. This illustrates how systems and bureaucracy can dehumanize individuals, creating a world in which people feel consumed by impersonal machinery, with governments capable of monitoring, tracking, and intercepting communications without consent. It raises the question, how do we live under these pervasive forces, and are these Kafkaesque scenarios merely figurative, or are they becoming our reality?